Good Monday evening, everyone. I'm Ashley Banfield. Welcome to Crime and Justice. Tonight, what killed a brand new bride if her husband didn't do it? And could a rare illness be the culprit instead of murder? Because Ryan Widmer has been in jail for 10 years, convicted of drowning his wife, Sarah, while she was just soaking in the tub. Here's what he told the police when he called 911.
The call came in that there was a female individual in a bathtub and that she had drowned. The initial report was that it was believed that she had fallen asleep and drowned in the tub.
Although the preliminary cause of death was drowning, there is evidence that there was some traumatic injury and some use of violent force against her.
Ryan told the cops that he'd been watching TV downstairs, and when he went upstairs, he says he found Sarah lying face down. He did everything a good husband would do, pulling her limp body from the tub and then attempting CPR. But Ryan might not have been such a good husband, because according to the responding officers, Sarah's bathtub was mostly dry, and so was Sarah's body. And while Sarah's hair was wet, her injuries did not match up with what most people get when they get CPR. It took 3 different trials to get an answer, but her husband was eventually found guilty of murder.
The verdict reads, we, the jury in this case, duly impaneled and sworn and affirmed, find the defendant, Ryan K. Widmer, is guilty of murder.
Judge, I did not do this. I don't know why this has to keep going on. I mean, my life has been ruined. And it's not because of me. I love Sarah. I would never have hurt her. Never. And this has gone on for 2.5 years now. I haven't had an answer for what happened to her. All I want is an answer. They have not given me that chance. We've had to hire doctors to try and figure out what happened to her. Been depleted of money. And this just keeps going on and on because 12 hours after she's died, I'm charged with murder. I mean, I don't have anything other to say than this is just not right.
That pleading husband is asking for a 4th trial now, and a federal judge could grant that to him at any day, because there's a brand new theory about some age-old evidence that could set Ryan free after 10 years behind bars. Joining me tonight, Janice Heisel is the author of Submerged, Ryan Widmer, His Drowned Bride, and the Justice System. Also, certified death investigator and professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, Joseph Scott Morgan, is with us. And defense attorney Brian Claypool is here as well. Janice, if I can begin with you, it seems like the forensics did not add up to the story that Ryan Widmer gave. And yet, when you see him pleading in court like that, it makes you think twice.
Well, actually, Ryan never testified during any of his trials. And when I was doing research for the book that I just released, I did get to learn what he says his full account was. And furthermore, I found documents that kind of back up that account. I didn't find any inconsistencies beyond the initial statements. In his 911 call, he said something else about her position being face down. However, he says that was a misstatement. And a lot of people wonder, well, how would that have benefited him if he said face up, face down? They wonder about the other things about his wife. For example, she did fall asleep in odd places, in crowded bars, parties. And then I found out something while I was digging through documents in his lawyer's basement. I found a document where Ryan gave an account for his lawyers, and he gave permission for his lawyers to give me everything for my book. And he says in this document that she was walking on her tiptoes as she went up to take that bath. That just struck me very odd, and I did some further checking and found out that there are some documents that indicate that it could have been some type of a neurological condition that would cause a person to walk in that manner, and this was never brought up during any of his trials. So there was an expert I spoke to who said that it's not fair that the DNA was never checked. And so that's why this expert in my book is giving new life, so to speak, to the argument that the DNA should be released.
Well, I'm going to ask in a moment about that issue of her walking on her tiptoes and whether that has any significance with regard to this new argument that a medical condition, something called long QT syndrome, may in fact have caused her death in that bathtub as opposed to murder. But you just mentioned that face up, face down issue, and we actually have that part of the 911 call and the questions about it. It's from Investigation Discovery. I'm going to ask our control room to cue up soundbite number 2 because he specifically talks about the face up or face down issue. Have a listen.
In your 911 call, you said she was laying face down in the water.
I mean, I never said face down. I know I said she was face down. Yeah.
Yeah, you said face down in the water.
Yeah.
Okay. So was she face down or was she face up?
She was looking up.
Okay. Tell me what happens next.
I mean, my first thing was to pull her upper part of her body out of the water.
Let's stop right there. So she's laying face up in the water. Did you pull her out of the water?
Just her upper part of her body, yes.
You never pulled her out of the water?
Not out. Well, not her whole body, no.
How much water was there?
I mean, it was up to the, what do you call it, the drain plug?
Okay, you mean the overflow?
The overflow, yeah, overflow, yeah.
And you didn't try to pull her out of the water?
No.
Why not?
I don't know.
You look very much capable of picking her up out of that water.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating, Janice, to hear that. But by the same token, there is this testimony from a friend, someone, albeit who befriended Ryan Widmer while he was behind bars, who said that Ryan admitted to her, I did it. I think the actual quote is, I did it. I killed Sarah. I did it. So how does that factor into this new argument that maybe, in fact, it was this medical condition, long QT syndrome instead?
Well, interestingly, jurors that I spoke to indicated that they did not believe that witness's assertion, so that brings a whole new wrinkle into the debate. The problem with Sarah's health was explored somewhat during the case, but there was never any testing done to determine whether she had narcolepsy or this long QT syndrome. And actually, this has been fought in the courts since 2011. There was a preservation order issued by the trial judge, so they are required to preserve any DNA evidence that still exists. Now, Sarah was cremated, so it leaves the authorities in possession of the only known source of her DNA.
So I want to, if I can, play this moment where Ryan Widmer's twin brother, Aaron, speaks about the notion that they want to test the DNA for long QT syndrome to bring that up if, in fact, there is a fourth trial. And as I do that, listen for the actual descriptions of what that does to a person, specifically what it may have done to Sarah Widmer if she were, in fact, having a bath and if she had, in fact, been overcome by the symptoms. Have a listen.
We can have them done testing on to determine what sort of disease, and we feel there was a good chance she had this long QT syndrome. Her constant headaches or sleepiness she seemed to have all the time. We feel most confident it could be a good possibility what she had.
So Joseph Scott Morgan, I had never heard of long QT syndrome. I don't know how rare it is. I don't know if, in fact, it causes you to be narcoleptic, fall asleep, have heart palpitations, as Ryan's family describes. But you're the certified death investigator. Can you explain it?
Yeah, long QT syndrome is a condition that affects the rhythm of the heart, and it causes almost a pause in the circulatory system for a moment, and this can lead to a condition that's called tachycardia, which could in fact make someone lightheaded and this sort of thing. And it can in fact, if the tachycardia goes on too long, which is this rhythm event, it can in fact be lethal in certain cases. Is it rare or not? It's not particularly rare, but it's not something that you come across every single day.
So the other thing, Joe, is that her coworkers, they actually said she often fell asleep in her car in the mornings, that she napped during her lunch break, that she fell asleep at a bar with a table full of women there, and that she frequently complained about headaches and stomach aches. Does that sound like it squares with long QT syndrome?
Well, I'm not really sure about that. It does sound like she's suffering from some kind of fatigue event in the event that she had fallen asleep in the tub and had gone under. But there's so much other evidence that you have to that you have to egress through in addition to just whether long QT syndrome is present. They could do genetic testing and see if she was predisposed to this condition. I would say, yeah, go ahead and do it, but it's still not going to explain away the extensive injuries that she has to her body.
Okay, so some of those forensics that you just described, if we're going to discredit the long QT syndrome and falling asleep in the bathtub, Brian Claypool, this is where you come in handy. As a defense attorney, here are the issues that were real uphill issues, so to speak, for his defense team. Sarah's body was warm. The police noticed a few weird things at the crime scene. Not only was it warm, it appeared to be dry. Her hair was wet, but the towel was dry. The bathtub itself was mostly dry. Few droplets of water around the actual drain. They tested negative for blood, but there was some blood found on the carpet of the bedroom. A Lysol wipe was recovered in the bathroom. There were, as I said, the stains on the master bedroom carpet. There was unknown female contributor's DNA underneath her fingernails. The bathtub had streak marks in the middle and a fingerprint, or at least some fingerprint marks that couldn't be identified. The fingertip markings were in a downward position, somewhat of a small stature, and forearm impressions on the tub were determined to be of an adult nature. So, as a defense attorney, how does long QT square into the argument now?
Well, Ashley, first of all, just so your viewers know, in order to get this writ of habeas corpus granted that Widmer's lawyers have filed, it can't just be based on, gee, Judge, can you take a look at this evidence again? This doesn't look like a murder. It really isn't a murder. I'm a good husband. I love my wife. It has to be based on a constitutional argument. And the argument they've got to make, which I think they have some merit for, is that it's a violation of Widmer's due process rights guaranteed under the Constitution to not find an answer. Remember, criminal trials are a search for the truth. They need an answer. Get her DNA, find out whether she had long QT syndrome. If she did, in my opinion, constitutionally, that warrants a new trial to allow his lawyers then to argue that, look, you have all this other evidence you've mentioned, but really the cause of her death is this long QT syndrome that led her to drown.
Well, the tippy-toe part is certainly fascinating, but just one answer real quickly, Brian. I'm out of time, but would they be able to bring that new evidence into a fourth trial of the tiptoeing up to the bathtub?
Yeah, absolutely, Ashley. If they can get the new trial, they can get that new evidence in.
It's fascinating. My thanks to Janice Heisel and also Joseph Scott Morgan. Brian Claypool, I'm going to ask you to stick around if you would, please. There is some outrageous video.